keeps on evaluating. That's more critical point here. That means there is no end for the evaluation of any product, of any technology. So in this integration, what exactly it is doing? Integration should allow automation of all the business processes, all the systems across the multiple technologies, and after integration, you should give self services also to the end users to get the things done by themselves instead of going through a traditional process of raising request, then approving someone, and then follow up all this. So critical applications will be going through the standard process, but most of the time in the today's world, people prefers to have self-serviced applications. So all most of the softwares are also focusing on that by removing the unnecessary coding or unnecessary multiple steps in between in fulfilling their requirement. That is where this automation is in focusing. Then why we need this ERP implementations for a new customer? If it is already an ERP implemented customer, why he needs to go for upgrades, why he needs to migrate? So these are the important questions. So for all that, whatever I mentioned here, around 10 points I mentioned here, this will compel the end user to take a action for to take their future action on the ERP. So best of breed technology they would like to have. If they have a old functionality, they would like to have a recent latest functionality. They would like to embed it into that particular service. Then they would like to have a single source of truth as a master data for their entire business data, and decision making should using this data and this technology with the best practices. Decisions should be faster enough. Then not only human being making decisions all the time, human being cannot make a very good decisions. So this is where the analytics comes into help the decision makers. Then the integrations with the third party products, single software cannot fulfill all the requirements of any business. This is where the integration with any other products comes into the picture. And coming to the innovations, is it is a always ongoing changes keeps happening. And more important is the availability. Okay, the system we should be in a position to access from anywhere in the world because of the global scenario. Then we will have a in general we will have more complex processes involved in the business because of different models. Earlier we used to do with B2B, then B2C. Now we are moving to H2H. H2H is nothing but human to human. Of course that is not COVID. So this is where the business is moving ahead. These are the models now. And ultimately while doing the business, we need to have the software compliance with the number of government regulations. This is where is very very important. So any software has to have has to fulfill to the maximum extent. This is where usually people prefer to go with either implementation or upgrading their existing technology or migrating their applications from one particular platform to the another platform. This is where is the what is this SAP. Then I'll move to the next slide. So we talked about SAP, but what is its adoption in the world? If you look at the screen, you can find out 3,55,000 customers around 180 countries, and most of the Forbes global companies, 87% of 2000 are with SAP, and remaining all 100%, 98%, 75. You can read this one. Okay, this is where the penetration of this product in the industry. These figures are reflecting how strong SAP in business community. Along with SAP, we have a multiple ERPs like Oracle EBS, Infor, or any other ERP, but SAP is number one in the ERP compared with even Oracle EBS. Oracle is strong at their database end. And coming to the SAP, I highlighted the portfolio, cloud platforms, BW, S4 HANA, and HANA computing platforms. These are all different products they have come up with and different integrations. Each product has a unique functionality. Depend upon the business requirement, we can choose out of all that portfolio. Then coming to the, as already I explained, why, who needs this SAP? So new implementations naturally need to go and they have to convert or upgrade or migration lift. This I will talk in detail about while talking about the AWS. So, this is the product evolution. So in the 1973, this product has been called as R1, release 1. Then they moved to R2. Then the code line. Code lines is nothing but the code which has been written. On top of it, we are able to see the user interface. The code lines is changed from R2 to R3. That is a major change. Then in the 2003, 2004, it has become a SAP ERP, that is ECC, what we call it as. From there, again, a major new code change, code line change is happening from 2004 to 2015. Then finally, now we are with S4 HANA. S4 HANA is released in 2015. After that, it has released 4 more major versions. The current one is 1909 is the latest one. So they named the product to represent the year also in that product. So whichever product has been released in 2015, they named it as 1509, later 1609, 1709, 1809, then 1909 is the latest product. In between every quarter, they used to release a SP patches and all that stuff, release levels, and so many are there in between. That is cumulatively they used to release, or product based they used to release within the that product. Then coming to the, okay, we are talking about ECC and all, then suddenly we hear about the HANA. So what exactly is this HANA? If HANA is not there, what this SAP product used to do? Prior to HANA, SAP application used to use third-party products like Oracle, SQL Server, or Sybase, or you can use a MaxDB, DB2 kind of stuff. Okay, predominantly SAP is installed on Oracle, then it comes with the SQL Server, then DB2, that is, it goes on like that. So S4 HANA is how it is different from the third-party databases like Oracle. We all know that Oracle is a relational database management system. Similarly, even HANA is also a relational database management system, but it has a built-in memory capability. In the relational database, Oracle database system, whenever you execute any transaction, the data, it has to fetch from the disk to the memory. From the memory, it needs to pass on to the application. But because of the fetching from the disk, it takes lot of performance issues used to crop up in between. To avoid that performance related issues, now HANA has come into picture. The bigger game change here is, it is all the data, most of the data, whichever is stored in the disk, now it is also storing in the disk. Along with that, it is stored in the memory. That means application, whenever it access any data, it first goes to the memory, then it fetches very fastly. That is the main advantage. And the second most important is, earlier we used to store data in the relational database in a row level, each, but column wise we never stored it. So in case of HANA, it is a column oriented also, column and row oriented. And the third most important thing is, relational database management systems will only store only day-to-day transactions. But if you want to analyze that data, because of it is in terabytes, once data is stored, because of due to number of years of operations, the data will be increased to terabytes. Then whenever you raise any request against terabytes of data, the performance will be very slow, and if you want to analyze that data, it is very, very difficult. This is where data mart, analytical warehouse, data warehouse, separate products we used to install, then we used to build separate applications on top of that warehouse databases. That means to fulfill our business requirements, we need to have two databases. To avoid that, with HANA, we can have a single database which fulfills both OLTP and OLAP business requirements. And HANA has been started in 2011. Then it has BW is the first product, has been powered with HANA in 2012. Then in 2013, ECC has been provided, powered by the SAP HANA. That is where we call it as SOH. That is nothing but suit on HANA. Then in 2004, earlier, prior to S4 HANA, we used to call it as Simple Finance. Same ECC system, we used to call it as Simple Finance prior to SAP S4 HANA. It is powered with HANA in 2014. Then finally, it is named as a same as SAP S4 HANA in 2015. So this is how the HANA has been integrated with their existing product portfolio. Let's go to the AWS now. And prior to going to that, the architecture. At the on-premises, how we can install this? What is the architecture we can follow? The first thing is we can have a single server. Within the server, we can have both application and database. Or if you can distribute these components across multiple servers, that is called as a distributed instances. The third one is high availability, to avoid any single point of failures at component level. I am talking about the component level here. That is where we can have a high availability. Along with that, by building a clusters, we can avoid even hardware failures also. By even hardware failures happens also, our systems will be always available. This is where this high availability comes into the picture. The another one we are having is a DR setup, that anyhow we are going to cover in a separate section in more detail. And this looks the architecture in the on-premises end. How it is going to appear in the AWS, that's what we are going to see in the next slides. Okay, what is AWS? Earlier, prior to AWS also, not only on-premise, we have a hosted environments earlier. These all hosted environments have been maintained by the private organizations. For example, like Rackspace, SunGod, MTG, all these are the big players in the hosted environment. Even Oracle is having on its own hosted, even though today they call it as Oracle Cloud. Prior to that, they are also in the hosted business, that is called Oracle On Demand. So that means we are habituated earlier also to work to deploy our applications in somebody's data center premises and use it to access through network. That we used to do, that we used to call it as a hosted environment. But then how it is different from the hosted environment? This AWS and those hosted environment is not publicly accessible. Okay, those are limited to particular locations. That means geographically they have not been spreaded. Then there is a problem of latency people use it to face, and they cannot serve more customers at one shot because they cannot grow in a faster way also. Those requirements has driven the bigger players to think and come up with a cloud environment that is called public clouds. This is what you call AWS, Google Cloud and Azure and Oracle Cloud. These are the four major players right now in the competition compared to with other small players. So this AWS, you all know it, it is a subsidiary of Amazon. It provides an on-demand cloud computing platforms for us along and APIs for companies, governments, and we need to pay based on as you pay as you use basis. Okay, and AWS services offers a very broad set of cloud-based products. That means if you want uh, compute, that means if you want only infrastructure, you can have it. That is compute storage. If you want to use some database products, you can use their built-in database products, or you can provision your own database on top of it, or you can make use of their analytics, networking capabilities, mobile developing tools, and they have a number of management tools to monitor the infrastructure and IoT security. All these embedded technologies also, they have made it. They have come up with a different architecture. There is a serverless architectures. There are containers. You all know about the DevOps tools, multiple tools. Those are all been available in the AWS marketplace. We can make use of it. If you look at the view, how AWS looks like, the bottommost is the AWS global infrastructure. In the next slide, we'll talk about that what exactly is the global infrastructure. On top of infrastructure, there is a networking. On top of networking, this compute storage database we can make use. On top of it, we can make use, build the application services. The highest level is where we administer and we deploy the new applications. Coming to the global infrastructure, how it looks like. They have built around the number of regions and availability zones. This is called AWS Global Infrastructure. They have presently 22 launched regions across the world, and 5 more they announced new regions which are going to come up, and they are having around 70 availability zones, and each zone is also isolated with the other availability zones in the single region. Each region minimum it will have 2 availability zones, 2 to 3. 2 to 3 availability zones will be there. I think in Mumbai region right now we have 2 availability zones, and within the availability zones you can have one data center or you can have more data centers. And each day, if you look at this availability zone screen, there you can see that one or more data centers, independent failure zones. These data centers are, these availability zones are physically separated. They have a discrete UPS, on-site backup facilities. All are unique. Okay, nowhere both are. Uh, they both will have only continuous availability, and they will have a connectivity facilities. Other than that, ideally they will work as an independent entities. These are called availability zones. Then if your business is a media business, then this 216 points of presence, this is nothing but edge computing. Right now we are in the cloud computing. The next level of computing is edge computing. To take the advantage of that edge computing, they are coming up with the points of presence. Right now they have given 216 points of presence. The advantage of these points of presence is to reduce the latency while accessing our business data from anywhere in the world. So as I mentioned, AWS is a leader as for the Gartner Magic Quadrant. You can see the screen here. So Amazon is the top as a leader, then to the Microsoft, then it is the Google. The other players are nowhere in the leaders category. They are like in the challenges. In future, this Alibaba Cloud, Oracle, IBM, uh, they will not going to get much business compared with other 3 top players. Out of this, Amazon is getting more edge. The reason is they are making, they are releasing n number of services every week or every month, we can say. Not only they are releasing the number of services, they are making it, their products, services more affordable. That means till now from 2006, they have cut down their prices almost more than 70 times. So that history shows that their products and services going to be affordable for us in future also. Then coming to the SAP solutions on AWS, I don't read much of all this stuff. I highlight out of this the first session related to benefits of deploying SAP on cloud versus on premises. The first benefit is usually we need to do capacity planning while before buying any hardware at the on premises. In case of cloud, we no need to do any capacity planning. Just like that, whatever you want, you just provision it. If you don't want, you can destroy that one, you can remove it, you can reconfigure it. But always remember, uh, while doing all these activities, based on the resource consumption, you need to keep paying the bill. That is the underlining point that we need to keep always remember. And always, whenever someone says in the cloud you can do everything, means does not mean that everything as we like. There is a certain process for every system. We are all aware that within that limitations of that particular infrastructure or uh, strategies, services availability, we need to make use of that services to get the real benefit what we want. Okay, that is more important. Usually, whenever people come and says that okay, in AWS you can do everything, but in practically while executing that, making use of that, you feel that okay, there is a problem here, there is a constraint here, and all that will be there always with every product. Okay, that is the bottom line. And the main advantage of going to cloud is whenever there is a technology transformation in the business, in the global world, the technology businesses requirements are changing day by day. Okay, now because of mobile technology, things are going to change a lot. Even the current applications, whatever we have today, is going to be modernized. That is another concept. That is where people usually most of the time you hear in most of the seminars also about the modernization of applications. The current applications are useful to the older business ideas, but new generation with new requirements, the existing business application also need to be modernized. That is where this concept comes into. In other slides, if I have covered anywhere, I will explain little bit extra there talking about the modernization. Then go to the next slide.
Hey, Anna, one
Here,
question over here. Hello.
yes, yeah,
You're saying in AWS we don't require capacity planning. So how
correct,
in classical way we generally calculate the SAPs in SAP and we provide that figure to hardware vendors and they will suggest us the RAM, CPU, and the benchmark capacity of the hardware which we require. So in the same
correct.
way, if we require in the AWS, then how it will happen without capacity planning?
Yes, assume that we don't know how to size it. Okay, that is point number one. There is a
Okay.
process to sizing. There is a t-shirt sizing is there, and user based sizing is there, and throughput based sizing is also there. But as for my statement, without knowing all this, your department head asked you provision one server for me to install the SAP. You immediately, without knowing that, you roughly know that at least by reading the installation guide, okay, 500 GB of hard disk is required, and
Okay.
128 GB of RAM is required. Minimum things you know it, right? You
Yes.
just provision it.
Hello.
Okay. Once you
But
provision, that
okay.
means you did not plan it. You just gone through the installation documents, whatever it is there, without planning. Whatever is written, you took it up and you did it. Assume that if you provision for less quantity, then you can increase it anytime. Okay. Assume
The
that
Hello.
if
I
you
agree.
provision more,
I agree.
hello.
But the only negative point which I see over here is generally in the application layer, whenever we install any application by default, based on my RAM and the CPU. HANA allocates the default memory. So if I increase on the fly, so those memory again needs to be tuned up, and again downtime and other things will come into the picture.
Yes,
So it,
coming to your point.
yep,
Coming to
yep,
your
please.
point. Downtime is always there. Yes. On the fly means it doesn't mean that by click away online. You need to shut down, just increase it, then you bring it up.
Okay.
Okay.
So apart from
Hmm.
that, do we have any calculator in AWS where we can get bare minimum RAM and CPU required for HANA application? For example, if I have 5,000 users in my BMC, and
Yes.
approximately 5 application will be deployed on HANA or ERP. So approximately how many HANA RAM and how many CPUs I would require? So that
Hmm.
kind of calculator, do I have it in AWS or anywhere?
Yeah. Yeah. Coming to your point. Sizing actually, whenever you are using any product, if you are using a SAP product, you always first need to refer to the SAP sizing. Okay. If you
Okay.
are using any other product, that product vendor sizing we need to use. That is very important. Okay. For sizing, here using the SAP sizing first. While provisioning that SAP sizing on AWS, you need to pick it up AWS sizing here. You got the point now? To provide this, SAP sizing will be provided by the SAP vendor. AWS sizing will be done by your solution architect with the knowledge of SAP and knowledge of AWS. Your solution architect will give you this AWS sizing. Okay. Once he
You
while
you mean to,
after, yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but when you say solution architect, are you expecting hardware solution architect of AWS or SAP?
So can I add
It is
can I add a point here?
Hello,
Yeah,
hello.
please,
Yeah.
please.
So see, it's very simple. You know,
Background voice, some background voice.
yeah. Someone should go on mute, please.
So I have the one question,
Yeah.
one practical scenario. So this is Nizam speaking. Hello.
yeah.
So I have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
complete, yeah, I have to complete two projects in AWS in Tata Communication. Okay. So as
Okay.
per the sizing for AWS specific sizing, so the I/O of subsystem, because I have to use them for EC2 instance.
Hmm.
So in SAP AWS specific sizing there is the EC2 instance. Okay, that
Correct.
define. Okay, so in this sizing for EC2, that is the electronic the computing sizing there. They have the IOs of subsystem and the CPU we can define from the some calculator
Correct. That
in particular EC2 instance. So
correct.
SAP the as per the SAP also in my project in the AWS in two projects, okay, we have to some define the all the user. Then we have to how there are two three instance, okay, so we have to go from EC2 instance.
Hmm.
Automatically we have to calculate up a CPU and the IOPS and automatically we have to generate from the AWS side. So this is the
Ye-
sizing in the AWS side.
Correct. Coming to your point, prior to going to AWS, you are going
Yes.
to have a SAP sizing in place. Am I right?
Yeah,
Because
actually, but we have defined which instance can be the EC2. There are two three technology. Okay,
Yeah.
so I can
This.
use the EC2 instance. Amazon
yeah,
EC2.
in the
And
easy,
just let me take that. Give me one
yeah,
second. I'll just tell you. See, nothing changes in the way you were doing the planning earlier and what you do in AWS. Everything is done based on SAPs. Okay. The advantage of AWS is that the SAPs per core that you get on the SAP certified instances on AWS is higher than compared to any other cloud provider, also on premise. Okay, so you simply sizing is very simple. You let's say you require 10,000 SAPs. There is a grid present. Okay, you go there and you see what is the nearest instance matching, giving you 10,000 SAPs, and you pick that up for your sizing. It's as simple as that. Okay, and when it comes to HANA and all, it's all about the RAM, right? So so on AWS you have 64, 128, 256, Y12. Okay, the catch is that if you require something in between, for example, you say that I need 140 GB RAM, you simply have to move to 256. There's nothing in between for that. But
okay,
sizing is simply on SAPs, whatever SAPs you get. But it's a guarantee that any other place, if a particular to match a particular SAP, you need 32 core system. You may get the same kind of SAPs on a 16 core system. We'll have to do the sizing properly, but you may get at a lower core itself. That is as simple as that. Yeah, this is what exactly what NNR is showing. So you just pick up the SAP. Let's say you have 10,000 SAPs you require. So you go down, third last. You pick an R5 2x large instance, which is closest to 10,000.
So to address your question in detail in presentation format, can you see the screen? Amazon is certified with certain EC2 instance types for you. Okay.
Yeah,
While
E2C.
installing, while installing SAP, you need to choose among all these. Okay. The latest one is R5 instance type, and if you want more memories, okay, for example in terabytes, then you can go for the X1 also. Up to
So
48
Rajiv,
terabyte, you can go. Okay.
so,
This is the, yeah.
sorry. So Mr. Rajiv already already informed us. So they have to ask a question for AWS Hazing. So this is your answer. That is EC2. That is the technology in the instance. We have defined some parameter for the as per the site steps. We have the instance. We define the AWS server.
Yeah, in this you need to choose which
Yeah.
instance. These are all the instance types
Yeah.
based on the memory, based on the vCPU. You can
Mhm.
choose the instance. Okay. Then
Exactly.
ultimately you will get the SAPs also here. Is it clear?
Rajiv, you
Okay,
You
clear?
need,
just one more part. The one which you're showing is in your local system. So do we have the same table format in AWS website or somewhere over there?
yes, yes. In AWS site you have everything this.
Yes,
But
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
Go to the
what about?
Google. I
Yeah.
will tell you. Go to the Google. Type SAP instance types. Finish. You will get it.
So
So I
you
will.
get a EC2 all the instance times in the Amazon EBS balloon types and all the
Yes,
so they mentioned.
all you will get in the AWS site. Just
Yeah.
go to the Google, you type the keywords. Nowadays, everything is transparent. Okay, we only have a patience to verify and which is the right site, which is the right note to read and to implement it. As simple as that. Okay, shall I continue with the next slide?
Yeah, please.
Okay. The another important thing is deploying SAP on cloud is the DR. Okay, setting the DR. You can set the DR in on-premise. Usually, you will have only one data center naturally at your office premises. Else, if you deployed your applications with another hosted partner, as I mentioned earlier, they may be in Mumbai, they may be in Delhi. Okay, there you can, if they have data center, that owner is limited to have only few data centers. He cannot have global because of the capital expenditure is involved and operational expenditure involved, and the technology is being used by them. These three will dictate them. Okay. So with AWS, because AWS is spread across the geographically around 22 regions and 70 availability zones, you can have your DC at your office, sorry, in Mumbai or nearby region, and you can have your DR in different continent. Okay, different continent you can have your DR. That is the greatest flexibility we will get with the cloud. Okay. And AWS, we talked about EC2 instances. In the EC2 instance, the cost is very important while provisioning. So they have given a three options for you to choose the while provisioning the instances. You can go with the on-demand, or you can reserve those instances either for 1 year or 3 years. Based on that, if you go for 3 years, you will get almost discount of 54%. If you go for 1 year reserved instance, you will get 32, I think 32% discount compared with the on-demand prices. And another important thing is, while provisioning the instances, you no need to pay entire amount for the entire your 3 years. Assume that you are choosing a 3 years reserved instance, you no need to pay entire amount. Okay, there is an options there where you have no upfront, convertible, or no upfront, or pay partial upfront or full payment. Like that, you have a multiple options to reduce your cost based on your budget, based on your business changes, what you are expecting in future. That is where I told to have a solution architect is in place. So the solution architect should be aware of both SAP and AWS. He will be a good useful in deciding this all. Okay.
Just to add to this, NNR, we'll be working on few projects with ABM. So we will be providing, suggesting them the pricing options with the business team. So I think the relevant team is not here in the audience. So here the audience, yeah. So we will work on that pricing model with them.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
And
one question on the previous slide which you are showing regarding the DR setup.
okay.
Basically, if I talk about HP hardware, okay, HP had got one certified service, which is HP Service Guard cluster, which is certified and supported by SAP. Okay,
correct.
So in the same way, do I have any certified and supported service in AWS for HA and DR both?
Yeah, HA and DR on the SUSE. If you coming to the AWS, right now you have option of having the operating system. Either you need to choose SUSE or Red Hat or Windows. In case of Oracle databases, you must install on Oracle Enterprise Linux. Okay, this HP Service Guard is not certified on AWS, but in the AWS there are HP side. I think there is one cluster is supported, certified, that you can verify there in the AWS site. It is available. Okay.
No. What I mean to say, HP Service Guard cluster is one of the service or a software or service created by HP, which is certified and supported by SAP to get and avail the benefit of HA and DR functionality. Okay.
Functionality in the on-premise.
Okay.
On-premise. But
On-premise.
whatever is available in the on-premise is not available in the AWS.
Agreed. So
okay.
What I mean to say, AWS has got a lot of different services as a native AWS service, correct? So do we have any native AWS services for HA and DR which is even certified with SAP and SAP?
Exactly. That is on SUSE cluster. We can build in a high availability and a DR straight away. Then how we will use it means the HP Unix. Right now you have on-premises HP Unix operating system. This is not certified on AWS. In this case, you need to migrate. We need to go for the migration of SAP from, this is a heterogeneous migration. Okay. From
Can
HP Unix.
Can I say that in that case I have SUSE Linux native cluster services certified with SAP, but we don't have any AWS native services as a certified. Can I say in that way rather?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
So see, there are a couple of things I'll tell you. One is that whatever standards of SAP like ASCS clustering and all is there, in terms of implementing high availability. Let's talk about HA first. Okay, considering that HA is the option for zero or even zero RPO kind of. Okay, so AWS having multi-zone architecture, that two data centers in Mumbai. Now we have three, but there are at least two data centers in every region. You can create a high available load balanced architecture of what is using ACS clusters on AWS, the standard way that you would do anywhere. Okay, that is the first way to do DR. Now some of your clients will not be interested in. Okay, now good part of this is the good part of doing this DR on SAP is HA on AWS is that you can look at dividing a defined capacity. So let's say for example, the capacity says that you need to provision a 128 core RAM on the application. So you can divide this into two. So for setting up a DR, you actually don't have to put 120 plus 120. Okay, so when you set up the HA, you divide 64 plus 64 into each zone and then set the ASCS cluster. So cumulatively you get the same power at the same cost of running this one DC, one circuit. So the cost doesn't escalate in this case when it comes to running the application side. Okay. When it comes to HANA, you can do an HSR, number one. Okay. Now coming to native. Now your main question was native. What does AWS provide as native? Okay. When you do HSR, what you will typically do is you will you'll run the HSR on a sync on a smaller instance. Okay, because you will not do the memory preload on the DR side. Okay, so you have 256 GB running, which is on the master server, and the HSR is running maybe on a 128 GB RAM. Okay, and obviously it depends on the roster size. That's a different calculation, but this is a base calculation, right? So this is a traditional way. Now, when the customer says, I do not want to pay as much, I want to save some more money. What I thought we would do is, even this is valid even if the customer is on premise, if the DC is on premise, right? On AWS or on premise, you can run the tool of AWS called Cloud India. Okay, and I can still do a sync from on-premise to AWS.
Ravi, I completely agree. These are different, implementation options which we have it. My only concern is when I say about Service Guard, HP Service Guard cluster. Okay, HP Service Guard developers who has developed this particular service cluster guard, they have co-developed along with the SAP developers in the Germany, and they have given as a certified solution with SAP. So at the event of failure, if my primary goes to my DR site and for any reason corruption happens, even SAP will support. SAP will not say that you are using what is that Service Guard cluster, because Service Guard is certified with SAP. So in the same way, I'm saying, do we have any native service which is having HA and DR functionality in AWS, and additionally that is certified and supported by SAP in that way without co-deployment option? I agree. There are different workarounds in different way we can do it, but at some point of time, SAP may say that we cannot support because this is something issue with AWS service, because that might have not passed on my redo logs or something logs in a proper manner. Might be in that
Hello.
way.
Hello. This is Nizam speaking. Actually, Rajiv, you answered that is a very good question. But in AWS services, there are some Amazon S3. They are the storage services. Okay, mostly recommended by the in backup solutions. All the backup solutions from the all the services for the backup related by IAM related and access management and the S3 as well. There are two services in the AWS. Am I correct?
Excuse me. So I will address your question in the next slides. Okay, I have answered everything is written in the slides. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I will address your question. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So what are the benefits of deploying SAP? In short, the increased speed and innovate. You can innovate faster, and you can reduce your cost. Okay. This is what is the major benefits you get it, and rapid provision, the growth and shrinking, expertise. As you mentioned now, if you look at this, AWS expertise, SAP, AWS and joint partner ecosystem. You are talking about this one. HP jointly with SAP has developed a HP Service Guard for their cluster solutions and DR solutions, correct? Remember this one. Okay, this I will address you in more detail in the next slides also. Okay.
Okay.
This is called a joint partner ecosystem. If they jointly developed any of such ecosystem, it will be certified it will be available in the AWS. If is not available in the AWS marketplace, that AWS marketplace, you can Google it, you will get it. If it is not there, it is not there. Got it? And before that, still there is an architecture screens here that will clearly explain you in the DR screen. Whatever till now we all discussed about the options, those options also going to be explained in detail. Okay. Then coming to the another benefits, it is easy to resize and upgrade. This is very much important. See, assume that now you are running this particular server. Okay. Then you would like to go for a different CPU and RAM. Now it is running with 4 vCPU, 16 GB, but you want to go with 16 vCPU, 64 GB. In the cloud, see how easy it is. He just shut down this machine. He changed the instance type. He brought it up the instance. you got what you want. See how quickly you can do it. This is very, very important. The another very important thing here is hardware upgrades is minutes. That means earlier I showed you one screen, EC2 instance types certified for SAP. In that I told you that let's go with R5 now. Why R5? R4 is also certified. R3 is also certified. Why we are not going for that is the old software. Okay, new technology. Nitro Systems has been designed by the AWS. It is their own products. Okay, Nitro Systems. They come up with higher performance with lower cost. That is the reason we can choose it. In this change instance type, that is the advantage. Within few clicks, you will get the latest hardware in place. In case of on-premises, we cannot scrap the old hardware till minimum 4 to 5 years. This is where is the main benefit of this going to the cloud. Okay. And in short, they clearly mentioned what are all the benefits. Because of this, it is a simple infrastructure management, and timely you can go with the best hardware, best applications in place, and your cost is reduced. This is the advantage. And what exactly AWS is providing? They are just providing a secured cloud infrastructure and to deploy. They deploy in the form of AWS services. This is where you are talking about AWS native services. Along with AWS native services, other product services are also available in AWS. And that services is specific to the product which you are going to install. That is like SAP. For SAP, SAP has its own native services that we will talk about in the DR. Then coming to the architecture, how it looks like now. In the AWS cloud, as I mentioned, you need to choose the region. You want to configure your servers either in Mumbai or Delhi or in US. That is nothing but a region. Then within the region, you will have a 2-3 availability zones. You need to choose which availability zone. Also, you need to choose which availability zone you would like to have. And within the availability zone, not only your servers, there are many customers. So how it will be isolated between the customer? All are using the shared resources only, shared servers only, actually speaking. But you have a separate servers also, that is bare metal servers. It is very costly. But when you are installing your applications on a shared storage, then how your data is more secured. That is very, very, very important. This is where VPC comes into the picture. This VPC is nothing but virtual private cloud. Within the cloud, for you, he is making in a separate cloud. It is a private cloud for you. Within this private cloud, you can have your servers. No one will have access to this data or services. This is where it comes. Then network point of view, there is a subnet services. This is where we configure the firewalls and everything related stuff in this. Okay. Then if it is a single instance, for example, you will install everything is one server. Then for this, you will have a EBS volumes attached. In AWS, EBS volumes you can attach to at any point of time. Only single EBS volume can be attached to single server. But going forward, they are going to coming up with the attaching EBS to the multiple instances also with certain conditions in place. That's what is going to happen. And this CloudWatch is nothing but a thresholds we can set it. It keeps monitoring all your infrastructure. If there is any problem in the server or network level or any level, it immediately gives you an alert. This is where CloudWatch metrics will comes into the picture, and all the events, whatever is happening within this VPC, all will be recorded. Okay, anytime we can access what happened. We can drill down anytime. So that is the greatest advantage. This is nothing but a single server HANA workloads. You can scale up this instance. Scale up is nothing but
And one small question. Hello.
Yeah.
As per your diagram, availability zone is there. After that, one VPC is there. Correct.
So this is single availability zone. This one.
Agreed. So can one VPC can be created using two AZ, or dedicatedly
Yes.
one VPC is
Yes.
using only one AZ? How is it?
If you wait for a few more minutes, you will get that slides also. Okay.
Oh, okay, sure.
I prepared this PPT with the view of all the users. Okay. So by the end of this, without asking question also, you will all questions will be answered.
Hello, hello. This is
And,
Nizam speaking.
yeah.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Please just explain the in AWS scale in and scale out. I want to some
Yes. Yes.
explanation
Yes.
for it. So
Yes.
it is very
I
important
will.
thing. Okay.
Yes. The scale up is nothing but you have provisioned one server. Okay. You provisioned with assume that 4 CPU and 32 GB. But suddenly you want 32 terabytes of memory you want to have for that same server. That means you cannot scale up that single server up to 32 GB. In that case, what we need to do, you need to go for a scale out. This option is called scale out. That means assume that the single server can go up to 24 terabyte. Then this is 24 terabytes. Additional 8 GB, for example, I will have another server. This is scale out architecture within the single zone again. Okay, this is scale out, and more information you will have in the next screen. What exactly scale up and scale out also. I think
No, because I have to problem in the scale out in the my previous project. So that's why other questions are regarding.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Okay.
scale out the scale out the timing. What are the if there is scale out the functionality? What the timeline of this particular project that we have to migrate for anything. So just a brief about the scale out functionality.
Yeah, scale out is nothing but just you need a more memory, more CPU. Okay, that you cannot build within a single server. In that case, you will add additional server for the scale out option. Okay, this is the future of scale up and scale out.
I am talking about the in benefit in AWS services in the scale out.
Scale out, the benefit is, see, when you have a requirement, okay, how it will be fulfilled. To fulfill that requirement, scale out is an option has been provided by the AWS. Do you think that any other option you prefer to have, or do you have any idea about what exactly you are looking there other than what AWS is provided?
No, I have.
Let me take this. Let me answer this question. See, it's very simple. In any cloud, you can't do a vertical scaling. Okay. So because to scale vertically, you have to stop the server, change the size of the server, then start. Unlike what you usually do in VMware and all. In VMware, you can provision CPU on a running system. So what option you have on AWS is, or any other cloud is, that you can add capacity in the form of horizontal scaling. Okay, so like if you remember, I was telling when I do a high availability cluster with the SC and all. Okay, so if I need 128 core, I will put 64 in one zone and 64 in another zone. Okay, and suppose SAP may auto scaling, whether it is possible in SAP, I'm not aware of it. I don't think it works like that. So in case you want to add another node in the cluster, you can spin up another servers and make the configuration changes to accept that server also as a part of the node of the cluster. Okay, so so on a running system, on a running production server, you never bring it down. If you need capacity, you bring another server, add it to a cluster. Okay.
And always
Ravi,
remember in the
Ravi, just
yeah.
please go ahead. Anna, please go ahead. No problem.
Yeah, in the AWS, if you want additional resources, you have option. Always you need to shut down. Point number one. Okay, especially for SAP, auto scaling is applicable in the case of websites like Amazon or Flipkart. There, especially discount sale period, they will have a n number of users load. In that time, there is a feature in AWS. It will automatically provision multiple servers to take up that load. But that feature does not fit to the SAP. In SAP, we have a high availability is nothing but having an additional application servers that we need to install well in advance, or as and when we are expecting the load, then we need to configure it. That is very, very important. Okay, while configuring, the terminology will be different. Ultimately, for SAP, especially, you need to shut down, plug in, then you start up the instance, have either one server or multiple server. But
Perfect.
within one server, the vertical scaling is nothing but a scale up option. There you can, in your current on-premises hardware also, there will be a CPU slots. You can put 4 slots or 8 slots. If you want 32 slots, you cannot insert, right? You need to buy the additional hardware. Similarly here, in case of additional requirement, you need to go for horizontal scale out. But vertically, to the supported capacity, you can scale up. This is nothing but scale up, scale out. The terminology varies depend upon, if you talk about these two, if you go to the Azure, he uses a different terminology. Whenever we are going to use any product, we just need to be habituated with the terminology of that product. But ultimately, the concept is same with everyone. Don't worry about that one.
Okay.
And if you look at here, yeah, you're asking one more question.
Yeah, can you go to previous slide, please?
Okay.
Ravi, couple of times you have mentioned, deployment option of having multiple distributed instances in different AZ. Okay, and just few minutes back, Anna also said that in one region we can have multiple AZ. So I just wanted to know what is a approximate distance between two availability zone? Is it in kilometers or it's in the same data
In,
center or how is it?
it is in kilometers, roughly around 100 kilometers, for example.
So,
Each
so yeah,
availability zone is isolated.
So can I
And
have? So can whenever one VPC is created for any customer, so does that customer have that visibility whether it is created on one AZ or multiple AZ?
yeah, that
That's what
you are
VPC.
going to choose. Yes, you are going to choose. It is not going to create by automatically. You are going to choose which availability zone it is.
so
Okay.
basically, VPC, the scope of VPC is band zones. So I can have one VPC which is this can be across zones. Okay. So only
Your voice is really very low.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better. Yep.
So what I said was the scope of a VPC is zone. I mean across zones. Okay, one VPC across multiple zones within the same region. Okay, that actually create a private cloud. Subnets which are created inside the VPC are zone specific. Okay, I cannot span a subnet across zones, which is true as per any networking standards also, which is correct. Okay, so one VPC across zones, subnet within the zones.
Okay.
Okay, and these two zones are connected with very low latency, high speed dark fibers. Okay,
Yeah.
so essentially they are more or less next to each other. Even though they are a few miles apart, 50 miles apart, or maybe some little more or less than that. Okay, but they are essentially connected with high speed bandwidth, dark fiber, and you will not feel any difference even if your database is running on one zone and it is a wrong way to run it. But even though you are running it on your data in one zone and application other zone, still you will not feel any latency kind of factor.
So are you saying that that latency will be in 0.ms? Is it? Are you sure?
Yeah. These
Yeah.
are all published. I can
No,
send you
because when you say 2 DC, which is approximately 100 kilometers, in the difference of 100 kilometers, so getting the latency of 0.ms is something is really very hard. But you are saying that's possible in AWS. So that sounds good.
So it may be 100, maybe 50, and this is how much that we don't know where the data center is.
No, the only
How
reason.
far they are. But
the
they are
only-
different.
The only reason behind that, because we have some standard KPIs defined by SAP, so those KPIs should not exceed. So that's the reason I was asking what
Yes,
else are
yes.
other things can be getting.
As long see, the best part is that answering the earlier question, even AWS SAP has certified instances and the underlying network infrastructure of that.
Okay.
So if you are running, there's one link I have sent you in the chat.
Yep.
There you would see the instance type and what kind of network it is running on. Everything is defined and certified basically. If you are running your SAP infra on these instances, Then SAP and the support, business support of AWS will also address the issues if you are facing any issues.
Okay.
If you are running your SAP on any other instance apart from that is listed and certified by SAP, then they will not take care.
Okay. So regarding the latency, let me explain in the next screens in the DR. Okay, you will get it.
Sure.
Still we are in the single zone only, single availability zone we are talking. There are multiple screens which will give you a lot of information to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Now if you come here, you will see the multiple availability zones and multiple regions also. Can you see here? First screen shows that. Okay. Let me go back. Okay. The region US East and region US West. These are two different regions with West. And within the East zone region, you have chosen two availability zones. Okay, each availability zone you have already provisioned the servers. Okay, in case of SAP, this is where SAP native services come into the picture. See, between the availability zone 1, 2, we have primary database, and here it is a secondary database. This is where HSR come into the picture. HANA synchronization replication. You got it now? Similarly, central application level, we have ERS is replicated between availability zone 1 and availability zone 2. Got it? See, there is an auto scaling group. We talked about auto scaling. Auto scaling feature we can utilize only for the server. You got it? These are additional application server we will be provisioning well in advance. So this is where we need a replications and all. Now you are talking about the latency between these two availability zones. That is first point. As per the SAP standards, we will have you will have a acceptable latency here. That is point number 1. And how you will have that? In the synchronization, you have 3 options: sync option, sync in memory, asynchronization and all. If it is between availability zone, we always go with the synchronization. If you are syncing between region these two, okay, here you have another database. In this case, we go for the HSR asynchronization replication. The reason here why we are going asynchronization is the latency is more between the regions. Okay, these are all within the limits of SAP certified. But SAP certified, if you choose the right instances, right regions, then you can achieve it. The choice is ours. Okay, AWS has given you an options to choose based on our latency requirement, based on our RPO, RTO requirements. We need to choose which availability zone, which region, which service, where need to be loaded. This is where it comes here. I think this is clear. And someone talked about S3 also. Can you see here S3 replication, database backup and logs? See, if you stored S3, okay, you can attach this S3 bucket across the regions also. That means once you put your data in any of the S3, it is always available. Behind that, it will be replicated across almost 3 regions. That is an AWS default functionality of that one. Okay, that is the greatest advantage of S3. In the S3 also we have 3 services again. S3 Glacier is there. S3 Deep Archive is also there. That means based on the usage of data what you stored in S3, if you are frequently using the data, you will use the S3 service. If you are intermediately using the data, then you will go for the S3 Glacier. That is for archive files kind of stuff. If you are using the data infrequently, for last 10 years data, rare occasionally you will go and access for data, then you will go for S3 Deep Archive. These are the services. These are the AWS native services that we need to choose while creating the particular disk. Okay.
Hello.
Then, yeah.
Yeah, so I have to one question because this architecture, there's some new architecture in the SAP AWS on in particular, that is the SAP HSR. That is so that is the replication server. So in replication server, that we have to configure in particular the HSR.
Yes, we need to
Yeah.
configure here.
Yeah,
Similar
yeah.
way, yeah,
So
what we are doing at the on-premise.
as per your network configuration in the AWS, in particular AWS, there was the EBS technology also and the ENA technology also.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
presently now the AWS, they have the inbuilt services, that is that they have to configure with the replication server, and this replication server, they can be changed between the two networks with the S3 zone, zone 1 and zone 2. So
No,
all,
the replication point of view, for example, if you pick up the HANA database replication, we need to configure.
yeah, there are network configuration. There are some network configuration in the replication server
Network complications in
for the
the
SAP
synchronization process.
HANA for SAP HANA replication server. That is
Okay,
a, yeah. So you can deploy this replication server in the particular network configuration.
particular availability zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can choose. See, within the availability zone, it is hardly between the 50 to 100 kilometers away. Okay, so you will get the required latency by
Because
choosing the.
in my previous project, I have a lot of services created by the in the AWS. Okay,
Hmm.
so as per the AWS team, we have to sit together and we have to deploy the replication server between the two node and the replication between the network configuration between the HANA replication server also. So
Okay,
there's a service in the AWS. You can deploy the SAP replication server in the network zone.
correct.
Yeah. So
But
there are some in particular services.
coming to that I will talk about in the automation. Okay, there is a automation services. When it comes to there, I will talk about these things, these features. Okay, that is available in the next slides. Okay, now in HANA scale up HA and DR architecture, we are showing how you are going to create this architecture. If you come to this one, this is a scale out architecture with auto recovery of HA. Auto recovery is a is due to any reason, if your hardware server is failed because of hardware failures, it automatically creates another server with the same IP, same volumes, everything is same. That is the greatest feature of one of the native feature of AWS. Okay. Then coming down, HANA scale out with host auto recovery for HA within the same availability zone. That means we have considered only single availability zone here. Here, if you go with here, you can go with a multiple availability zone. Then again, database HSR synchronization you put. If you notice here, on top of these two availability zone, there is a VPC. That means within the VPC, you will have a multiple availability zones or single availability zone. It is our choice. Okay. See, if you look into this architecture little bit more, it is more similar to the on-premises architecture, but with the AWS services in the region A and region B. There are two regions. Again, here within the region A, there is availability zone 1, A, availability zone B. Here between, we have a HANA database, let it be HANA database, Oracle database, or anything. If it is a between availability zone,
Yeah,
SAP
so that is
all,
the DB replication server. The SAP
yeah,
replication
DB replication, it is
server.
always synchronous between the availability zone. That is what is recommended. In
Yeah.
case of between regions, we need to go with the DB replication asynchronous. This is very important.
So that is
Okay.
the SSR, the HANA replication server.
Exactly, HSR. Let
Yeah.
it be HSR or let it be SSR.
Yeah.
SSR means site-based system
Yeah.
synchronization, replication. Okay. Or in case of SQL server, for example, if you have a SAP with SQL server database, within the AWS, there is a native feature that is availability zone. Okay. In that availability zone, if you choose that apply the availability zone for this database, ultimately this entire data is available in the second availability zone also. Those are the features available. That is where in the beginning I told you, as we expected, Everything may not be available in any product, okay, but most of these services products are available. We should be aware of it, which service we need to use, how we need to use it. This is where I talked about the solution architect, where he can help you more, okay. But in the beginning that is required. Once it is provisioned, then it is very easy, okay. Then move to the next one. Okay, what is well architected? While we are talking about solution architect, there are 5 pillars. Based on that, he need to do this architecture. That is, one is operations, security, reliability, performance, efficiency, and cost optimization. These are the 5 pillars. Based on this, entire AWS is built its architecture. So we need to, while giving any solution, we should ensure that we are not missing any of these 5 pillars. If you miss it, then it is nothing but it is an inefficient architecture. If it is well architected, it will sustain all these 5. This is where we need to focus. These 5 points we need to focus. Then coming to your VPCs, AWS accounts. Whenever if someone wants to provision their servers in AWS, he can have single VPC. He can provision his servers, or he can have multiple VPCs and provision servers. Multiple VPCs. Why he wants? Sometimes he says production I want to have my own VPC, and for development and QA I want to have my own VPC because of security reasons. Let it be anything. He says that he want to secure more, okay, compared with. Then he can choose multiple VPCs. In one server, he will do day one quality. Here they can go for the production. Then why multiple accounts are required? For example, one Reliance company is having business operations in India, in America, in Europe. Then in that case, for entire Europe, they would like to have their accounts, entire thing in one single account also they can have. Or within the country also, they have a multiple business like Reliance Digital and Reliance Petrol, so many. For each of their business unit, they would like to have one multiple account. It is all user choice. The single VPC, multiple accounts is user choice. How you want to have your private cloud in the AWS. Okay. Then I already showed you this one. These are the EC2 instance types. At the moment has been certified for SAP on AWS, and this list keeps on changing. We always can Google it, we will get it, or in the SAP support site also, you will have a note. In that note, it will drive to this particular document.
This is the Intel-based process, no?
This is Intel-based process. Nowadays, they have come up with AMD processors also. AMD processors will cost you very less, but SAP is not certified to run their SAP workloads on AMD processor. It doesn't mean that we cannot run at all. You can try for day one quality for AMD processors if you are cost concerned. Okay. Otherwise, it is not certified.
But Dell company, they have to certify all the appliances from the QD appliances from the.
All this information is also there is a single note for this. In the note, they have provided what are all the hardware is certified to run SAP on AWS. Okay. For everything, there is a note.
If the client requirement that they have to choose the AMD, then why we are recommended to Intel process?
It is not the customer choice. That is very, very important. He wants it. If he wants it, means he needs to be ready to take risk. When I am saying it is not certified, still he says that I want, okay, have it. But whenever you are stuck up with the problem, SAP says that that particular hardware I did not certify.
But Azure they had recommended. But Azure they had to recommend it from the AMD process.
Azure has, that's what, again coming to your point, whether it is certified or not, Azure is certified or AWS is certified here. Azure and AWS both will certify that, saying that SAP workload will run. But is SAP certified that either on Azure or on AWS? That is very, very important point here. Always remember this one.
Okay.
AWS claims Yes, AMD is certified. That is the reason they have given that instance type, correct? Azure also says that it is certified. But on both these environments, is SAP certified to run their SAP workloads on AMD? That is the biggest question mark. That is where we need to be more cautious as a customer. Okay. Everyone will comes and says that everything is certified, but along with that, whichever products we are going to use, we need to ensure that all this triangle support is available or not. The classic example for you here is, if you take Oracle database, AWS is certified Oracle database, AWS or even Azure is certified. But if you run your Oracle database other than Oracle Enterprise Linux, Oracle will not support on any cloud environment. This is the catchy point. So these things you will understand by reading more about that particular product related information. We need to be very careful while choosing the cloud, while choosing the server, while provisioning the resources for that server. And here you can see that in that family also, for example, in the C5 series also, there are 3 types of instance types here. If you want to go with high memory instance like HANA database, we always recommend you to choose with R5 related series. Okay, the latest is R5, earlier one is R4, previous one is R3. So if you look at the cost also, the latest one is having less cost. You are getting 23% cost saving. Similarly, for applications, I always recommend to go with the C5 series. The reason is these are CPU incentives, application services. Those are not memory incentive. That is where we need to go with C5. For certain kind of instances like Solman, in the Solman you usually have applications and database as a Sybase. In such kind of instances, you can always choose the M5 services. Okay. Like that, based on your application and purpose of that, you need to choose the which instance family you are choosing. Okay, this is very important. And as I mentioned earlier, price cuts, agility, speed, and rapid innovations, no refresh cycles with the AWS. These are the cost and performance benefits you will get. Then we talked about scale up and scale out options earlier, right? Here, if you look at, see, in the R5 series, if you choose, then you can go up to maximum this 7 GB, 7 TB you can go in R5 instance. But if your business needs 24 TB in single server, then you need to choose X1E related stuff. Okay, that instances are also available. Scale up, you can go up to 24 terabytes as of now. It is going to be changed. That innovation will keeps on happening as soon as AWS certifies that, it will publish it. Till that time, we need to go with the available options. In case of scale out, you can even go 100 terabytes of memory of servers. This is exclusively useful for the business warehouse servers, Data Mart or BW, HANA. This is where you use the scale out options. In general, in OLTP, for most of the organizations, this scale up option is more than enough. Okay. And this is recent innovations. Okay. Innovations is a continuous process. As part of that, what are the recent innovations has been invented by AWS for SAP? If you look at not only for SAP, even for others also, this will be useful. If you look at here, there is an EC2 image builder. That means while provisioning the instance, using this OS provisioning configuration management, you can give the inputs to this particular builder. Then you can provision multiple servers, one after the another, without again giving the inputs for each server. If you want to provision 100 servers at one shot, how do you do it? This is where we need to use cloud formation tool. There is one more tool is there, and EC2 image builder. These are the easiest way to provision the new servers. This is one innovation they have come up. The another one is we will have a single sign-on. Active Directories, most of the companies will have at their on-premises. Even Active Directory now it is being supported even in the AWS also. Here you can have Active Directory either in AWS or in the on-premises one. If it is at on-premises one, we can configure that on-premises one with the AWS. That connectivity also we can give. Okay, this is the recent innovation they made, and this is available in 9 global regions only. This is very, very important. While choosing any service, always look at the available regions. Regions are very important. This service is only available in 9 global regions, not all 22 regions. So this information is also available in the AWS website, where we can see which services are available in which region. But most of the time, most of the services will be immediately available in the other regions also very fast. If it is available in 1 or 2 regions, they slowly immediately make available in other regions also. Then in short, if you look at, these are all the other additional innovations they made. For example, we have NFS file system in the on-premise network file system. In case of AWS, we call it as a EFS, okay, elastic file system we call it as. But in case of Windows OS, we have to go for FSX, that is a service name. So we should be aware of which service we need to make use for which functionality. If we know that, we can do all the requirement, we can fulfill all our business requirements in the AWS. Then coming to the automation of SAP infra. Okay, earlier this is where it comes, DevOps tool, especially if you look at here. Okay, DevOps tools you can be used to automate the SAP deployments operations in AWS. How this can be done? AWS has offered n number of API driven services. Using this, okay, you can automate all our day-to-day tasks like backups, restores, cloning, refresh of SAP environments. All these things you can do it if you are good at using the native driven services, and if you have a experts in our IT team who knows about DevOps tools. Okay, using this you can automate your way of doing maintaining your system. This is very important. If you look at the backups and snapshot, if you go to the previous one, they have come up with a data lifecycle manager. Now it automatically manages all the snapshot copies. There is a policy. If you define a policy, it will take care of everything. This is how new features are there. Or using the scripts, you can write your own scripts, because most of the basis DB is also aware of it, how to write a script, how to put it in the cron jobs. We are much aware of it. Same thing, we can make use of DevOps tools also here, and you can automate your SAP infrastructure. Then another important thing is, all these days we always install database after downloading the required media, then through the installation process. Instead of doing everything, there is a fixed start options they have given. We can provision the HANA database within 1 hour. Okay, we can bring our own license, apply there. Then with quick start, the guy who does not know about HANA can bring the HANA database within 1 hour. The greatest advantage going with the AWS cloud environment is on SAP is these are the advantages. This is where we are talking about SAP vendor in collaboration with AWS, they built it. Like this, earlier someone has asked about Service God. That Service God also, if he collaboratedly worked with AWS along with the SAP, if it is certified, it will be available in the AWS marketplace. As long as it is not certified by any of these party out of these three, it will not be certified. And more important thing is, till date, most of the things are certified on premises, but while going to the cloud, you should ensure and confirm from each vendor says that yes, whether that is certified or not. If it is certified only, please go ahead. Otherwise, avoid going ahead, especially for production instance. Okay. Then till now we talked about automation. Then now we talked about the optimization. what exactly this optimization, what are the advantage of this optimization. These are the business
So,
resilience you get
uh,
it. Yeah.
just one part. In earlier slide, you were talking about the licenses and other stuff. So, does that also include operating system license? How
Yes,
is it?
for example, if you are a existing user of SAP products, you already bought the license, you bring that license, make use of it. Otherwise, if you are a new customer, you can directly buy that license in the AWS itself. Like for example, operating system also we usually have a license at on-premise, right? In case of AWS, you no need to buy the OS license exclusively, because in the EC2 per hour cost itself, it is included in it.
So, what if I want to use my old OS licenses? Will that cost get deducted in the EC2 instances or
No,
somewhere?
no, it will not be. That option is
Uh,
only there other than OS.
okay,
Okay.
I like comment that. See, in AWS there is a function option called dedicated host. Okay, so if you
Okay.
want to bring your own licenses, you will have to have you have the option of picking up the entire dedicated host.
Okay.
Okay, that is nothing but a bare metal server. As I mentioned earlier, if you go with the bare metal server, is nothing but a private server. Okay,
Okay.
you are not utilizing the
OS
shared
license,
servers.
yes.
Okay,
Okay.
that is where that comes into the picture.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, then optimization. Okay, how you can optimize? You can look at here. What are the advantage of optimization? We are going to see in detail in the next screen. The first is business resiliency, then security, lowering cost, TCO, minimum 20% you will get, up to 40% there is chance if you optimize properly. Then you can access the cutting edge automation technology, scalability, data sovereignty, latency, and migration. All this can be optimized. This is where earlier we talked about latency. If you optimize properly, you will get the desired latency. You can run your systems with the desired latency. Let's go with what is business resiliency. Business resiliency is nothing but we need to avoid single point of failures. In so to avoid that single point of failures, SAP on AWS has come up with multiple services and multiple robust architecture. Those architecture I have already shown you. So you can study more on that. Then you can build your own architecture there. Then coming to the security, it is highly secure. Once you provision your data servers in the AWS, they are highly secured, and it meets a lot of what you call compliances. Okay, from multiple vendors across the globe, and those details also available, because if I cover all that, the slides will go to the another 200 slides. Okay, then coming to the lowering cost, I told you this is the based on the experience I'm telling. 20% is the minimum you can get the benefit, 40 you can try. People say sometimes 80% also, but there are certain areas you get it. It is not that across entire thing is 80%. They will be always specifically mentioned 80% of your execution time, or 80% of some particular downtime. We need to be very careful of those things attached to that percentage. Then coming to the cutting edge automation technology,
Uh,
this is lift and shift. Yeah,
and
you are saying.
yeah, the previous slide you were talking about the business resiliency.
Yeah.
So with regards to hardware, by default, this is implemented for all the, for any structure I go for. I go for R1,
Yes,
R2,
yes,
R5. By default, all the hardware related single point of failure is incorporated, or how is it?
yes. As a standard template, minimum the pillars what I have mentioned earlier, okay, they have been covered, but there are lot of companies, lot of services available in the AWS based on your requirement. For example, Indian government does not need some other compliance of Europe or US, right? In
Okay.
that case, applying those compliances and charging the customer of India does not make sense to the customer. That is where they standard point of view, standard regulations to the specific to that country, they maintain it. In addition to that, based on the business you do, based on the changing requirements, based on the country policies, we need to apply it. If you are applying the additional compliance certificates,
Okay.
additional security services, we
I
need to
will
pay extra.
and I will be more little bit more specific. For example, if I have redundancy at storage level or redundancy at network level to achieve the to kill the single point of failure.
Mm.
So
For each
I may.
service,
Uh-huh.
you need to pay extra. Yes, you need to build that redundancy. Okay, for example, uh, what you call auto failure service.
Okay.
What it does, if there is hardware is fail, if you don't enable that service, another server will not be provisioned automatically. If you enable that service, if you are enabling is nothing but you are going to pay for the usage.
So by default, there is no business resiliency implemented. So while architecting the AWS, system, we have to activate those services. Is it like
No,
that?
Coming to your, I will tell you one point. High availability, 99.99% AWS gives you the resiliency. Okay, for the standard one, even without taking a additional services.
Okay.
If you want 100%, probably we may not achieve. That's what we believe, but you can keep on applying. Okay.
Agreed. I got my answer. Like by default, they are giving 99.9 as a default without choosing the services. So I
Yes.
think that answers my question. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So any have a SLA defined in particular in AWS that if there is some not recover in particular time, so you have any SLA defined?
Yeah. For that, I will tell you in the next screens. Okay.
Okay.
How that SLA we are going to meet. Okay. Coming to the scalability, also we talked about. Okay, how we can make use of the scalability features and how we can scale up, depend upon the critical applications, and data sovereignty and latency. For example, any financial data. Now the government is saying that you need to store entire data within India, means then everybody whoever is going to provision do the transactions, they have to choose the Mumbai region or some other new region which is going to come up in India for the AWS. It is going to be like that. Okay. And migration, most of the people are aware of it. The major migrations are, and prior to this I would like to talk about lift and shift. Yeah, if you talk about if you look at here, access to cutting edge automation technology, in real value of migrating to cloud is not the lift and shift aspect, but lift and shift also we can do, okay, using the third party tools like a Cloud Endure. But Cloud Endure says that even SAP workload, you can do the lift and shift. Once you lift and shifted through Cloud Endure, then you stuck up with some particular problem, then you raise a ticket with SAP. SAP says, no, the block corruption, the way it is happened is because of the approach you have chosen, we are not going to support that. In that case, what we need to do is migration. In this migration, there are a supported approaches, migration approach. Either it is a homogeneous app migration or it is a heterogeneous migration. Within that, the supported options only we need to choose while migrating any of our SAP workloads, or any workload for that matter, not only SAP, let it be any product workloads. Always we need to see the approach what we are choosing is right or wrong. And another, AWS native service is also there, server migration service. What this does is, if you say from your on-premise one of the VM server, if you give it to this service, it immediately lift and shift to the AWS straight away. That is also possible. But the catchy point is, always document says everything is possible, and every consultant, most of the consultant will say that everything is possible. Always default, ensure that will be conditions applied. Even though they have not mentioned star, always conditions will apply. That we need to read what conditions are there in that particular document of that particular service.
I have
Then
one
coming,
question. I have
yeah,
one question. So, because there are a lot of clients, they have to ask a question, and in my previous company also that from in-premises to the cloud in AWS cloud. Okay,
mm,
so we have to LCP instance. You have to migrate from the AWS cloud. How minimize the downtime? Is there any services to export import, parallel export import methods? Yeah, anything about the your services? Any special service in the migration from the for minimize the downtime?
yes. In this, there is a rapid migration approach is there in AWS. Okay,
Rapid.
yes, rapid
Okay.
migration.
So
Okay,
just explain what you repeat.
yeah,
Like,
using that rapid migration
uh-huh.
by giving the whatever the configurations they have mentioned. Okay,
Uh,
by giving those inputs, there is will be steps, certain sequence of steps will be always there. Okay,
okay.
till now I have not used the rapid migration for the migrations, but that feature is there.
It is minimize the downtime.
Naturally, yes, but I will give you practical scenarios for you how we are going to minimize. Okay, one of the customer,
Uh,
I have SAP, Oracle is the database at on-premise. Okay, now it is on AIX, for example. Now in AWS, I cannot migrate to the AIX because it is not supported. Then I cannot choose even SUSE for the database because Oracle database, Oracle will not support. Then what I did, I took the Oracle Enterprise Linux on
that is
top of the
so that is a heterogeneous system.
heterogeneous system.
Migration. Okay.
But applications I can install on SUSE. Why? SUSE is certified. So
Sir,
my SAP system, I built applications on SUSE, the Oracle database and Oracle Enterprise Linux. Now the question comes here is nearest to zero downtime, how we can do.
Yeah.
The simple plan here is if your database is on 12c, okay, then again it is coming to the versions of product versions. If it is on 12c, you can go for the Armen cross platform. Okay, if it is on 11g, most of the Oracle database is on the 11g. If it is on 11g, you need to go for a transportation table space.
No, I have already used the transportation table for that's a export import method. Okay.
No, that is not export and import. In the transportational
That is a
method,
table space management. So that is the table. So BR tool can be used. Okay, for table space management. Okay.
no. In this 1 terabyte database, I am going to migrate with 1 hour. Can you imagine this? 1 hour downtime. I am going to migrate 1 terabyte database of Oracle from on-premises to AWS. This is where the catchy point is. We need to read more and more, and we need to do the combined approach. Okay, there is no single approach here. We need to do a combined approach here based on taking the online backups, taking the incremental backups, transferring and building on the AWS. At the end of once your cutover is decided, by that time you need to ensure that all the up-to-date incremental backups are in the AWS. Cut down at the time of cutover, lock all the users. By the time you already identified the table spaces required, hardly it will be there 4 or 5. Make it as a read only. Take the incremental backup. Okay, then copy onto this one and export the table space metadata. Don't export the table space entire. Export only table space metadata. Then import this into the AWS database. Yours is done. 1 hour. Okay. So all the features are available as a basis DBA. How we are going to make use of all the services and all the approach brainstorming we need to do. Okay.
So
With that,
Amazon, they has a services, a bulk of services for migration for heterogeneous system.
correct.
Okay. So, but the Oracle is the tool that already inbuilt tool. There's a O2 BR tool.
O2O, yes. In
Yeah.
that case, we need to pay extra, right? you need to pay extra to get that one.
Okay. If they have a
Everywhere.
heterogeneous system, if they
Yeah.
if they heterogeneous system for Oracle to HANA database, that is the SOH. So
In that case, you can directly go for the DMO.
so any special for minimize the downtime in DMO?
In the DMO is very simple. The R3 load, number of R3 load jobs.
It is a
You need to
calculation.
include that.
So it is a thumb rule. So it so already defined. But in
No, for that you have another option in software provisioning manager. Add
it's
another
export
host
import.
to.
It is the export import method.
No, yes, export import is there. In that also, to reduce that export time, okay, you can add another node while exporting. That feature is there in a software provisioning manager. If you can provide more servers at on-premise, you can get it. Anyhow, while importing, it is on AWS. You only for the import duration, you can make use of the highest configuration. You can reduce the downtime. Correct. So these are the options.
Is there any E2C computing migration from is there instance to instance is there?
Instance to instance is very simple here. EC2 is a instance type.
Yeah.
Entire data is stored in EBS volumes. If you assume that, okay, I don't want this EC2 server, I want to move to the next server, simple, shut down this one, attach these EBC volumes to the another EC2 server, then you bring it up. If you give the same IP address, same host name, you don't need to do anything else.
But the client they want to require some most important part, that is the downtime. So is there any the facility for the AWS to minimize the in-premise to the cloud migration? Any thumb rule from the AWS?
No, it will not give the AWS thumb rule. Actually, it's always we need to. AWS is a infrastructure provider.
Yeah,
They are
it's
not
okay.
a SAP solution providers. For that,
Yeah.
always conditions apply. That's what I mean to tell you. They always, if you look at any document, as a SAP document, near zero downtime.
Yeah. It is a and the DM. But I'm talking about the AWS.
Yeah, even at the AWS end also, there is a rapid program tools are there. Then we need to experiment with the either POC or with the dev environment. Then if it works for satisfy your business requirement, you can make use of that particular service.
It's a payable service from rapid.
Yeah. Every service is a payable in AWS. Most of the services.
So how
Very-
we have to define the costing wise parameters.
Costing wise, you can always look into the monthly calculator is there. AWS pricing calculator. You can type in the Google. You will get that for each service. What is the cost and all? You can estimate. Okay.
It depends upon database size. So
Yes, all it will consider everything: CPU, RAM, database size, S3 bucket, and the number of services you are using. Okay, it will consider everything. That is called AWS monthly calculator, and recently they are renamed it as AWS price calculator.
capacity. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Thanks, sir.
Oh.
Thanks.
Thank you. And coming to the SAP DR, this is very important. Okay, we have more slides here. So any questions you please ask after all the slides have been shown in the DR, because most of your questions will be addressed here. Okay. If any customer asks you, please create my DR for us. The first question what we ask is, what is your RPO and RTO? Okay, this is first thing. Whenever he says, and till now, if you ask our experience, we prefer to go with RPO of 15 minutes and RTO of 2 hours is comfortably you can achieve just like that. Okay, no extra for too much efforts. If you want to make it 100% RPO, yes, we can do with the synchronization. Okay, in the HANA synchronization, you have seen the options. Either asynchronous option you want to choose. In that case, if you want 100%, RPO is 0, then go with the synchronous replications. Then you will get the 0. Then RTO point of view, while migrating approach, you make use of number of services, number of resources, more resources, and plan it. You will achieve that RTO also. Okay. So that is number one, RTO and RPO. What are the options we have? Okay. While choosing the DR after RTO and RPO, you need to ask the customer whether it is a cost optimized DR you want or a performance optimized DR you want. Some people say cost optimized. then what is the impact of that? You can see here. Do you want to go with a multi-availability zone or out of region? Okay, that also I have given clearly here. If you notice the first one is the simplest one, backup and restore. Okay, RPO is medium, RTO is high, cost is low. And these 4 features are not applicable for the out of region. Okay, only last 2 is available. Then automatic recovery, HANA backup and restore, everyone knows about it. Then coming to the automatic recovery, HSR without data preload. This is nothing but a warm standby, they call it as. Here the cost will be medium. For this you can provision an additional server. If not, you don't want to provision additional server because the cost will be high. You can have a database within the quality server or dev server. Within dev and quality you can have a small database. Initially install entire HANA database, for example, then bring down the HANA from 128 256 to 64 GB RAM, then leave it like that. Automatically log synchronization keeps happening. Whenever disaster strikes at the production site, immediately you in the quality servers bring down the quality instance, then resources will be released. Then whatever the HANA database instance is running there, shut down it, change the instance type to the higher resources, then bring it up. Similarly, you will have a application server, small one, till that time it is a shutdown mode. Using the earlier snapshots of production application, bring it up within a minute's time. Okay, this is the cost optimized DR. Most of the people can choose if their concern is the cost. And there is another one here, HSR without data preload. As I mentioned, that is warm standby. If a second one is having an additional server, the third one is without having an additional server. You can make use of dev QA servers for this. And fourth one is with data preload. This is nothing but a standby server, in usually what we call it is in a regular on-premise environment. Same hot standby. Either you can have this hot standby in single another availability zone or out of region. Okay, based on your cost. The cost is high. The next is RTO. Here it is low in case of multi-availability zone. In case of out of region, it is medium. These are based on these parameters. You need to take a call. The final one is automatic recovery and HSR with Amazon S3 cross-region replication. This is also we discussed about, but the cost will be higher here. Okay, depend upon your budget. Choose one among these 6. Okay, there are very beautiful documents on top of this. You can choose either one after reading that. Okay, then disaster recovery is no longer an option. We all know about it. And these are the regular benefits what we expect by having a disaster recovery that I mentioned here. Then what should be our approach? Each company, each DBA, his approach will be different. Okay, I just covered most of the areas where you can choose either one or a combination of one, or by clubbing of all these you can choose your own best practices. Okay, the first thing is what are all the critical resources and assets which need to be protected. Then you define your RTO and RPO. Then what is the recovery planning method we are going to, once that strikes, how we are going to bring it back. Then the required security related stuffs, implement it. First, before implementing, first you need to test that whatever we implemented, we always need to test it. Then scheduled maintenance, it means once you configure the DR, if you don't schedule the maintenance, what happens? There will be changes at the on-prem and DC. You might have upgraded the OS patches, or you might have applied some patches to the database, or might have applied service pack to the application. So that should be reflected in the DR also. Here the best practice is first apply these things on the DR side. Once it is successful, apply it on the on DC side. This is the better approach. Don't go in the reverse way. Then even in the DR site also ensure that you back up your data for the safety reasons, and always going with the cross region backups is recommended. Here it is a multi-factor authentications. Anyone cannot log in. Like you will have another software app where you will get the code, that is called a multi-factor authentication. Then a third-party services are also available. How you can find this third-party disaster recovery services in AWS is nothing but not only for disaster recovery, even for the migrations, lift and shift, even for any other service. There is AWS Marketplace. In that, if the service is available, you can pay and you can use that service. Okay. Then coming to the another company approach, they will see that what is the simplicity and completeness, what are the scalable options, is there customizability is there or not, possible in this DR or not, and how reliable the solution we have already designed. These questions you can put yourself and get an answers to it. Then another way approach is, good approach is, have a plan is written. Okay, it is not that only basis guy knows that what is the DR, how it is going to be recorded. No, always have a written plan and ensure that data is available at the not only on site, offshore also. As I mentioned earlier, test your plan with realistic scenarios, not with the hypothetical scenarios. Okay, more practical scenarios, choose it and execute it. Otherwise, our energy, company's resources will be wasted.
Hello.
Make updating the DR plan. Yes, please.
Yeah, I have the one question.
After completion of all these slides, if it is not addressed, I will take that question. Okay. It is fine to you. Okay. Then, even though you have planned well in advance DR plan, as for your requirement, as for the management process change, you need to update to your DR plan and implement it. Then plan your normal operations, because once disaster strikes, failure is happened. Once failure is happened in the DC, you need to bring back everything, right? Again, on premises also, in DC also ensure that you fail back the environment and operations are normal after the disaster strikes. This is very important point. Then DR is nothing but a business continuity plan. Okay, what are all the data production, automated backup with appliances. The appliances, you most probably you may be aware of it. The latest hardware is coming up with already installed services. Okay, databases and are also we don't need to install. Anyhow, in the AWS that is not required. And key elements to consider in BC DR planning includes, as I mentioned earlier, assessment of critical applications, procedure for backup, restore and recovery, procedure for implementing, testing and maintaining it. These are very, very important. Then how do you test your DR plan? Always you need to monitor after setup, is the things are right or not. Then are there any alerts mechanism have you put inside? This is where in AWS there is a CloudWatch alert. It will alert us if there is service failure, if there is a downtime, or if there is a thresholds, if it crosses the threshold value, what we set there. So we can make use of that AWS service. Then this backup and replications, as we discussed, we can set it up and we can manage it. And RPO, RTO, this is a definition. Most of the people all are aware of it. Then similarly, another companies will go this kind of approach, identify, involve the development team, all the team members you need to involve. Usually DR plans will be prepared by IT team, they just implement. But sometimes they don't discuss with other functional teams and their requirement into consideration. That is the reason always involve entire development team and ensure that give the importance for each infrastructure element. Then after accumulating all that information, create your plan. Then establish the in-house communication also. What the approach we need to communicate, how we need to do the DR setup or DR recoveries and all. Testing and retesting is always recommended. Yearly, at least every 6 months once, we need to test the DR setup. We should not assume that things will work once the disaster strikes. It may work, it may not work. That is the reason we need to go for DR drills. At least one is minimum, two is recommended. Then coming to the monitoring of SAP workloads, okay, till now you have provisioned your servers are running fine, SAP applications is running fine. Then how do you monitor that one? Here there are a monitoring services like CloudWatch and CloudTrail. These two will help you a lot. And CloudWatch enables you to create alarms, as I mentioned earlier. CloudTrail, entire events will be written in the logs. So you can go back to the once failure occurs or prior to the failure, you can always keep reading the logs in the AWS. You can take a necessary decision based on that. Then how the security will be maintained. Once you provision, anybody can log into the your server and access it. For that, there is an IAM service, identity and access management, that is called as. In that, there will be a security groups. From there, you will give which person need to access, which person has access to which resource. That will be defined in there. And coming to the backup, as I mentioned, always prefer to go keep the backups in the S3 bucket, first point of view, and global, available globally also. That is the advantage you have. Okay, make use of that services. And this is what I'm talking about. What is the cost of the